Well, I guess you were always supposed to be a solo artist. That's as far as the label were concerned. That's why they signed you. So they got you in the end. It took them a long time.
Their plan worked.
It was very Machiavellian. It was very patient and long-winded. I respect it.
It's how I go.
Don't worry about it. Let it go through a whole lot of trials, tribulations, challenges, personal tragedies. Come out the other side. She'll want to make a solo record. Trust me, it'll happen.
Dude, the first few, like little articles about it that came out felt like exactly what you're talking about. I was like,
No, life will do all that work. We just got to sit there and keep this Paramore thing propped up. It'll be fine.
Taylor, Zach, and I, how are we here anymore? I don't know.
Well, it's kind of in part what we're trying to find out with more of a focus on you.
It's scary. It is. I'm still scared.
Of course, because you care.
I care so much. And I also am realizing like we're starting to do, I'm rehearsing without Taylor and Zach there. And I'm like, is this real? Like,
well, I wondered how infrastructure feels around this project when there was no infrastructure when you started it.
It's strange to want to do something without the guys because it feels like it feels like a contradiction
to what you always said.
Yes. So for someone who spends their life checking themselves, like, am I being authentic? And also I think a bit of imposter syndrome as well. I'm sort of like really bothered by my own, walking contradiction.
That's exhausting.
You're telling me.
I mean, that is an exhausting way to live a life, irrespective of the great results, all of the superficial values that we apply to success.
Yes, yes.
All the coping mechanisms and distractions, which are exhausting too. And then you come out the end of that and you're like, well, hang on a minute. That's a paradox.
Yes, everything is though. All the important things are, it seems like. And I think that's the exhausting part about being an adult.
It's funny that it's probably out of all of the words that I've heard artists use throughout my entire life, trying to understand the mentality of an artist and trying to appreciate and empathize with it.
Yeah.
Adult is probably the least used term. I think it's terrifying for artists who start at a certain point in their life and then they get into this arrested development of superficial values to accept that maturity has to play a role.
Yeah, yes.
That is a bridge, man. That is a bridge nobody wants to cross, right?
It is so terrifying to realize that you have to, like at a certain age, you have to start being a little more self-aware and a little harder on yourself for a good reason. Not for the things that I'm hard on myself about, which is everything, but like important things and being able to be accountable and disciplined and responsible for your own shit.
Were you there when you started After Laughter, or did you just begin to cross this toll bridge after that tour?
We wrote Forgiveness and I went over to Taylor's house. I was really scared to show him what I wrote because, both lyrically and it felt so different for us. But I was excited because he sent me this music sounded like Paul Simon. And I was like, yeah, I'm there. Yeah. But we finished demoing it and I was like, this sounds like we're grown-ups. I don't know what to do with it. Like we went from Ain't It Fun to Forgiveness.
At that moment in time, do you think even subconsciously you recognized that by coming to that conclusion, you were actually about to immerse yourself into a whole lot of new questions? Because it sounds to me like that's really what you've been going through is stopping the tour bus, stopping the train, stopping it all, putting it all to one side, putting it on a shelf or putting it in the bin and then going, who actually am I as a human being when I'm not in Paramore?
Yes, that's why we took the time off. That's why we, on the set for Rose Colored Boy, had a meeting and we're like, we have to stop while we're ahead because nothing is ever enough. Like you climb to the top of one ladder to find another ladder.
Always.
Until
the altitude gets too high and then you just fall.
And
then you wake up in Malibu.
If you're lucky.
You have a house next to David Geffen. That's what happens when you hit the altitude. You can't go any higher.
That is not where I landed. I'll tell you that.
It's because you're not at the top.
And you're right. And I'm realizing, that's the thing. I'm realizing every day that there's the choice. It's like there's always a ladder that has like a fork in it. Mm-hmm. And I keep choosing the ones that just go like this.
Why?
Because I value something that I've never known before, which is some type of normalcy that I and my younger self can relate to. I value this idea of going home at the end of the day and knowing my friends from high school and eventually having a kid and making PB&Js in the afternoon. Like I fantasize about very boring shit.
Why did you not have a normal childhood? Why did that not resonate you when you were growing up and you began making music? Why were you searching for escapism in the first place?
I think the question you just asked me is what I'm in the middle of trying to understand.
Okay.
Like I spent so long normalizing 3 divorces that I went through. My parents, my mom's second, my dad's second marriage, like 3 divorces by the time I was 11.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't, my mom and my dad were incredible to me, and my grandparents also raised me. They were very much like my parents.
Yeah, but the pressure that, listen, I'm not speaking for your parents, but as a child of divorce, when you're a kid
yes,
and your parents start showing you attention because they're getting divorced,
right, it is messed up.
You start to feel guilty. It sows the seeds of shame because you're like, I'm receiving all this attention, but I'd rather my parents were together.
Right. You don't know it because you're so young. I mean, for me, I was, but it's not the attention that you want.
No.
And wow, I mean, I'm figuring things out right now, but that explains why even today, I would rather show, this is crazy. I've never even said this to my mom or my dad, but I would rather show new music or new work to people who really don't know me as well, because I know they're proud of me, but I think it's this thing that I grew up with, this attention for reasons that aren't maybe
valid.
They're not valid or something. And it's untrue in the sense that no one loves me like they do.
They love you, of course they do.
And they're so proud of me, but I'm in the middle of this in therapy right now. Like what we're talking about. It's crazy that we're just doing it in front of cameras now, but I'm like really having to go back in time quite often to understand my coping mechanisms, my triggers, the things that I do in relationship to, like my job, in relationship to my friends, my family, my bandmates.
Why you chose bandmates over a solo career?
Listen, why I chose being in a band, it's like a gang, it's like a family.
You wanted a family.
Yeah, I wanted a family so bad, and I still do. And in a lot of ways, the part of me that I think loves to nurture and mother and support myself and my community, it feels so counterintuitive to me to come here and be like, I mean, even today, we're probably going to talk about Paramore so much because A, it's a big part of my life, but B, I cannot separate myself from it. And I'm here to talk about other songs I wrote that weren't for a Paramore album, but this is a big deal for me. This is a growing moment, and it's a challenging moment.
You've mentioned having a family several times, and we've been going a relatively short amount of time. And I think about the work you have to do, ideally before you get to that place.
Yes.
So that you understand where things took you down a different ladder and how you can align. And you'll never be a perfect parent or a perfect person. Right. It's never going to happen.
I'm going to call you so many times.
You could go to therapy 7 days a week and spend a fortune on it, and you'll never be perfect, right? Yeah. And by the way, you don't want to be, because the problems lead to solutions, and that's the purpose of living.
Right.
But to truly understand who you're going to be as a parent, you've got to do work. And you can't do work when you're in a successful rock band touring the world.
And you're gone.
Keeping crazy hours.
Yes.
And the world's passing you by, and everyone's telling you you're great.
Right. And that's where my values don't align. Like I guess everything, our entire lifestyle is a contradiction to maybe some of our core values, like the things that are at the center of what we want.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Because there's a lot of running and a lot of chasing and a lot of being told you're great and a lot of saying thank you, which is exhausting. Thank you's overrated.
Thank you is so exhausting. It's so exhausting.
Thank you works when you mean it. When you don't, this is an overrated experience. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching, the last 5 years, and I would say since I started doing interviews by myself about After Laughter, I've noticed there's been so many more pop stars and young superstars talking about I mean, really talking about their health, talking about
Yeah.
their mental health, and people are falling apart. And what I've learned for in the last 16 years, you know, we've been lucky. We've had the same team our entire career. I mean, band members have left and come back and all that, but
Hayley, that's not luck. That's by design.
oh,
That's the
thank
family
you.
that you built. And can you imagine? Okay, hold that thought. But
Mm.
just getting back to what you said
Yeah.
before, if one of the team decided to leave to pursue other things
Yeah.
before today, maybe 3-4 years ago, how would you have felt?
Well, I mean, what are the circumstances? What's the context? Because I think typically when people have walked away for good reasons, we've all been really supportive.
But of course you would have been supportive, but deep down you would have probably felt like someone was leaving, like
Abandonment. Yeah.
Abandonment, right?
Yeah. You're
So-
asking me to like
So you got
pull
that,
back some layers.
You got that team because
Yeah.
you want to keep people together.
For sure. Oh yeah, it's I mean right now I'm doing a lot of the credits for all these songs, and I'm really thinking about how this project Petals for Armor came together, and I'm like, "Oh, we just kind of made another it's still Paramore family, people, crew."
Zach's on the record and Taylor produced it.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like
It's great.
it's still our family, and even the people we've brought in, like Joey, our touring bass player, family. Dan, who composed and arranged strings, family. Someone that I go to dinner with him and his wife. She's one of my best friends. It's just how we work best. It's how I feel comfortable and I'm almost more proud to come here and promote it that my friends did on the record than I am even just of myself. And I'm learning. I'm working on how to be a bit more forward about what the work I do.
But that, in my opinion, having listened to the record and spoken to you now about it, is because you're actually having to identify and understand what it means to you.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
you've made it, which is why, if I could give you a compliment, it's so brilliant and authentic and real, and people are responding to it the way they are because you didn't check out and go, I've always wondered what it would be like to work with Rick Rubin. And I've always wondered what it would be like to go and make videos with somebody else or team up with somebody. But don't worry, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Right? You were like,
Yeah.
hey, this isn't about me needing to go over here and do this. In my list, from listening to it, it's you saying, I need to put this in a new frame. I want you to help me build it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, yesterday I was talking to our manager about it, and I was like, really having to think about where it started. For some reason, the conversation we were having, it was about like, well, how did this come about? And I was sort of like,
Such an off-the-cuff question for such a deep experience.
Oh man.
Wow.
I know. I feel like all the time people are asking me simple questions when we're just meeting up for 5 minutes and then I'm having therapy. Like I need, at some point I'm going to have to figure out where the balance is.
Yeah, you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, like who's worth all of it?
Not today, but at some point. You
Oh my God. Even getting ready for this interview, I was like, all right, so I'm not going to tell all these other people all the things I'm going to tell Zane because I'm safe here. And also
You are.
strategy. And like, but how do you
there's no strategy,
how do
man.
you market your personal actual feeling? Like,
dude,
you
it's
don't.
so good to know you still have things you need to let go of, man. You're still trying to control them. And that's
Yes.
totally understandable because you're the artist.
Yeah.
It comes from here. You
Yeah.
give it to us. We sit there and listen to it. That's the most terrifying thing of all time.
So scary. Why do I do this?
Because you have to.
I do. I have to survive.
You have to do it to survive. And that
Yeah.
brings us to the most important question of the day.
Okay, I'm scared. Here we go.
How did this thing happen?
Oh.
Because you were supposed to take time off, and
Yeah.
wow, you obviously do not like time off.
Clearly, man.
So let's talk about the gap between you actually starting to work
And
and coming home, because how agitated did you get, and how uncomfortable did it get versus how comfortable did it get, and at what point did you realize that, okay, actually the time and the space at this point in my life as I'm entering into adulthood with new ambitions and desires of what I want to do as a human being, this time is important.
Oh, yeah. How personal we're getting. I mean, I knew from about January of 2018 that we were going to take a significant amount of time off at the end of the year. Like we were going to do Art and Friends, which was like our Nashville festival that we put together for the end, to celebrate. And I got off stage and I went back to my bed that night. And it was the best feeling because I was like, oh, I'm taking off my makeup for the last time. Like now I can get sick and it doesn't cost me $500,000. Now I can like be with my dog every day and not ask people to babysit him. I was so ready for that time. And another thing, we really did it because all three of us were interested in focusing, seeing what else we could be good at. I have the hair care company. Zach has Half Noise and he's starting a label. Taylor was going to get into production with or without me doing this record. So it just felt like the right time to go home and be friends and focus on other things, individuate. You know, we were going to do that, right? Yeah. So probably a month after I got home, everything that I had put, you know, a pause on before After Laughter came out just woke me up one morning and was like, still here.
What did you put pause on?
Well, I mean, think about it. Like the week we started promoting After Laughter, I moved into my new home. I had just asked for a divorce. I was seeing a therapist that it was like such a waste of my money because I was leaving home. It wasn't a consistent relationship.
You were trying to rush the process.
Big time, yeah. I didn't even know there was a process at all because I was pretty naive about.
Bish bosh, cool, divorce, excellent. Let me go to therapist, tidy this up, go on the road, have a great time, come back, everything is per usual.
Oh yeah, I mean, we went on the road and I thought this is the healthiest I've ever been. I'm hanging out with my friends from school again, like my bandmates. These are my boys. I've got, you know, other friends on tour with us that are crew that we grew up with.
Those are other values. Those are expectations of other people. The band is in a great place. Yes. That's a superficial, successful thing, and it's a safety space.
Right. It was so surface.
Cope.
Yes. And I thought, you know, and there were beautiful things about it. It did feel like a very magical moment for all of us as friends because it was like, you know, they weren't having to fake support me in my personal life from far away. We were actually able to talk about, I was vulnerable with them again. We were friends, you know, and it felt right and it felt great. But then we go on the road. I decide to kind of cut loose. I'm drinking every night.
Which you've never really had a great relationship with, right?
Well, you know, I actually don't feel like I am someone who has like big addictive personality. But it was not that I was drinking because I just was having a drink with a friend. It was like, I'm just going to rage. Yeah. I mean, it was like, in a way, it was very romantic because we were in this great place as a band. We're adults now. We're grown-ups that are talking about our feelings. We're like just letting loose and the shows were wild. And it felt like I was in some version of like a Fleetwood Mac biopic. And I was just like, this is sick.
Yeah.
You know, I know how this works. Yeah. Eventually I'll fall apart. Yeah. I don't know. But I wasn't worried about that at the time. I just was getting through it. And so all the things that I let go of or I tried to let go of when we went on tour just came crashing back down on top of me September, I don't know, a few days after Art and Friends, 2018. I had to go to like intensive therapy. It was rough. And it forced me to ask a lot of questions, ask my mom a lot of questions about what happened.
Yeah.
I was too young to understand why do I do this, and this, because I was making a lot of mistakes in my personal life. I just was self-sabotaging left and right. And I joke about it in songs, Paramore songs, but it's not funny to live it, right? So I was ready to grow up in that way. You know, I was ready to stop doing that.
Can I ask a question? And was your mum waiting for you to ask those questions? Was she expecting you to come back at some point and address those? Because she's watching vicariously as you're going through your life, and she knows that you're becoming an adult in your own right and has to give you the space to learn that. But when you finally came back and said, hey, I need some clarity because otherwise I'm going to end up and stay in this cycle of violence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's about like, I was realizing that I was choosing people that everyone's a good and a bad guy. Like, honestly, and I still have to learn to make space for that too. Cause I'm a villain in someone's story, just the same as someone is in mine. Right. But I needed to understand why I was picking certain types of people to partner with, why I was picking certain types of people to get close with or let be close to me. And it just didn't make sense. I was like, this feels ancient inside of my body. And she gave me a lot of answers. I mean, I know it was tough for her. We were at some like shitty breakfast place. It was not, we did not plan this conversation. It was just sort of like we're having some tea and I just look up at her and I'm like, what happened while you're pregnant with me? Like, what happened with you and Dad? Like, who left who? Why don't I know this stuff? Why is my first memory of holding you guys like this and I'm probably 4 and you guys are yelling and I have no idea what you're talking about? You know, these are things that like I'm in therapy talking about, but I really don't know what I'm saying. Like I'm just kind of making up memories.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't serve anyone. And I keep fucking things up. Like I just keep making poor decisions in my relationships mostly, you know. And that doesn't even have to be just romantic relationships. It's even in my friendships, you know. It's how I handle myself. So I would say around October, November is when the super heavy therapy started. And
Have those first days, man, they're so rough.
it's so hard to start, but it's hard to start anything, right? It's hard to start a record. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to start. Think about your career way, way long ago. If you knew all the things you were going to have to do before today, being right here where you are today, like you don't want to know all the things that you're going to have to go through. You really don't want to know.
Well, I think that's really the essence of depression, is that when it gets from being scared about what's going to happen 10 years or a year, you become scared about what's going to happen in a day.
Yeah.
And then you get scared about what's going to happen in an hour.
Right.
And then you get scared about what's happening right then. And then you've got nowhere else to go. And then you're paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I think that that's when it gets really bad. And the only way that you can actually get past that is with the help of others and communication, transparency, and a stare down. You got to stare it down.
Yeah, man, you do. And I seriously did not, like, starting that journey, I did not think it would have been beneficial for me to channel it through music, because that's all I've ever done. And I guess I thought, oh, you need to do something different or you're going to get, you know, and I included music in that. You're going to get the same results if you keep doing the same shit.
And also maybe subconsciously you're thinking like, how do I bring this to Taylor and Zach? I mean, they know and love me and they've been through everything, but this is a whole other thing.
It's like dropping all your baggage, all your heaviness on someone and saying like, you sort through it because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like, I'm going to write and sing this. I'm going to handle this. And I just want you to like hold my back. Like, I just want to feel your hand on my back and know that you're here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like when I think about putting this out as a Paramore album, it doesn't do justice to the stories themselves, and it doesn't do justice to the band. It really doesn't.
Well, even if you just break it down I mean, the fact that we're having this conversation and there's shows to be done and all this, as I've said at the beginning, this infrastructure, which you're willingly now building around this body of work, which includes situations like this, like how do Taylor and Zach contribute to this conversation? So in its very nature, in some ways, you just got to see it through. So you had to. I mean, you had to, right?
Yeah.
And when you started that first song, did it make the cut, the first song?
Yeah.
When you wrote that song and that opening line, right? Oh, wow, you started with grief.
Yeah.
You started with grief. You didn't start with rage or lust or mercilessness.
Yeah.
You started with grief.
Yeah.
Just when I'm ready to love myself, those around the people I love start to die.
Yeah.
Wow.
It really sucks that you do have to dig through the dirtiest shit to find like the diamonds or something. You know, like you got to burn all of it off. My family went through something insane in the middle of I'm doing all this work on childhood stuff and traumas, and I'm terrified of losing people, obviously. And my Nana, who was my mom's mother, had this terrible fall, and it was right after, it was the day, her and I share a birthday. She's 50 years older than me, so she's 81 now. On the day after her 80th, my 30th, she fell like all the way down my mom's stairs, and head trauma, like the kind of thing that we had said goodbye to her, right? And the weirdest thing is that she got better, but it prolonged the grief because she's not really here with us. She doesn't really remember everything. Thankfully, she knows who I am. She knows who my mom is, but she really doesn't. It was so tough and felt like there was a lot of death at the time. People that we knew, a lot of disease, like family, friends and stuff. And I just thought, like, what is the point of loving people? Like, why? Even in the best case scenario is I fall in love, we have a life together, and then we lose one or the other.
So that is one of the greatest paradoxes of all time.
Yeah.
And the ultimate test for any love. That is it. Yeah. Because I have these thoughts as well.
Yeah.
And it's immediately makes you want to protect yourself. But
It's
then you're not
terrible.
going to have the experience.
Yeah, then you don't. The more you love, the more you stand to lose. But it's like the more I let it, like I mean, I struggle with it all the time,
Yeah.
and
Because you're
that's
terrified of losing people.
I'm so scared of. I am not afraid of me going. I'm not afraid of that. I don't even fear how it would ever happen, you know. And I've been on the brink. I mean, the darkest depression, all of that. Like that doesn't bother me. But thinking about losing other people, oh man, like
Is that what's... All right, we're just going to go there.
okay.
When you're in the darkest place
Mm-hmm.
and those thoughts cross your mind, like, we have to address it for what it is. I'm sure everyone has. I have. You've had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
You've thought about it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is it the thought of others losing you
Mm.
rather than you being afraid to leave that ultimately brings you back into the place? What keeps you moving forward?
During After Laughter, it was really rough, and my dog is the reason I'm alive, because he would have been waiting on me to get home, no matter what. And you know how you know little sweet little puppies just like sit and they wait, and I couldn't think about it, and so oh whoa. Never cried in an interview before. So yeah, I just couldn't. And I'm glad, you know, cause life is still hard. It didn't become just like a breeze, you know, overnight or anything. And it's been years and it's still not a breeze. But it's so rich. And now that I'm taking account of all these feelings and I'm feeling all of them, there's this beautiful rainbow versus just the deep end, you know? Yeah.
These are the experiences that ultimately lead to this greater purpose that you ultimately feel. And when you get there and you recognize, like, your whole value system change. And then you look back on what you were aspiring to try to achieve and what you thought was going to make you happy and fill you up and give you this joy. And you realize it's all just these superficial things that really comes down to who you are as a person and how you look at yourself and how you see yourself. That is the journey. That is the greatest, hardest bridge you'll ever cross.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. To be effective as a nurturer, you gotta cross it.
Yes.
You gotta cross it.
You know what did it for me is thinking about, have you ever done EMDR in therapy? You ever done like visualization that's guided?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, that was very effective for me.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
I had to do work on these questions that I had for my mom, right? And I was asked to see myself during this time frame that I was that was spinning in my memory, and I was probably 4 or 5, and I was asked to hold her. So you don't think of that person as yourself right at first. You think this is a innocent child that like doesn't deserve to grow up in a shitty world. And you start to realize the power in you to take care and to protect. And at the same time I was going through this, you had Bird Box out on Netflix. You had like Handmaid's Tale, and like Moms were Peppermint with Jennifer Garner. You had all these movies and
all these super protective,
like revenge films. And
because nothing cuts like a mother.
That's where it comes from, because I realized, now I think that it's actually innate in all of us. I don't think you have to be a mom, you know, even a woman at all. I think it's innate in all of us to take care of. And it's learning to take care of ourselves that is so hard. And you, man, like I'm learning so much about it. Like you said, I'll never be perfect at it.
Nope. But now you appreciate the process.
Right. At least I'm doing it. At least I'm trying, right?
Well, the fact that you are taking what you're learning and applying it into music like you said, that's not a given here.
Yeah, yeah.
You could have come back around feeling better about yourself and made a Paramore record and let's move on. Let's write some fun songs. I feel great now. Life is great. The curtains are opened up and the sun is shining and everything's cool. Let's rock. Right? But we've got Petals for Armor and we've got these songs that deal in grief on Leave It Alone, that deal in rage. You know, the opening of the project, rage. Yeah. The first word, rage.
Yes.
I mean, it's awesome. It's an incredible way to start a project with that. It's like, man, deal with this in this really beautifully produced environment, which Taylor is just, I mean, God almighty, you guys are just perfect. Like he sees what you want to say and he's like a designer. He's like a fashion designer.
Yes.
He's like, I know exactly what your shape needs and how you're going to pop and how you're going to just stand out. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's so beautifully produced. And I know rage is a hugely powerful thing, but it's obviously something you had to learn to accept and wonder how you were going to control because, as you said, it just shows up in front of your face and comes out of nowhere.
For me, literally, like the way that I experience my anger is heat in my face. Like it is visceral. And I think I mostly tap into it without shame when it's for the sake of somebody else.
Right.
When it's for me, I go straight into shame. Oh man, you don't need to be feeling this. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Taylor's the first person that ever told me anger is neither a bad nor a good emotion. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. It's a thing. And you don't have to assign it to something. Like just let it breathe. Just feel it. I had the hardest time being angry while we were writing After Laughter. And I clearly had a lot of shit to be mad about, but I was depressed. And I think often depression is masking other, more pointed feelings.
Well, you're trying to say something, but you're actually denying yourself the chance to do it. Yes. And therefore, you're creating a cage around yourself, which is the definition of depression.
Right. You're just blunting the edges of everything. Like you're just blunting your sword.
There's a great scene. Well, it's not a great scene, actually. It's a really sad scene, but it's memorable. During the making of After Laughter, you put some behind-the-scenes footage out and you walk into the studio. I think you might even still be in your dressing gown. And you're just like, oh.
Do I wear a dressing gown?
I don't know what it was. You're in some kind of weird, like, you look like you just got out of bed. Like, you look like you hadn't gotten up for 3 days. And you just walked in and you were just like, oh. And you stood behind the mic like, oh my God, here we go. And you could just feel it like, wow, you're carrying this weight around. Like, you could tell. And then this music comes out and it's like, do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. It's like, hey. Do-do-do-do-do. It's like, let's all dance. Woo. Depression's fun. Let's dance. Woo. Depression's fun. Hey. Hands up if you're going to press. Wave your hands in the air if you're going to press. Like, it's crazy to me.
Dude, it was like that. And I kept asking Taylor, like, please, for the love of God, send me something sad. I'm so
it's
sad.
So good. He's got out the marimbas and you're just like, yo, depression and marimbas. That is a strange marriage.
Oh, God.
What a heady concoction, though.
It was so crucial. I really needed that. I wouldn't have asked for it, but you never really get what you ask for, do you?
Of course not. That's the whole point.
Yes, that's right. And it's so it always whatever it
That's why everybody keeps on to give you awards and drinks and food and everything else because they think it's going to make you happy. But really, it's not what you're really asking for.
No, I don't. Do I know what I'm asking for though?
No, well, you're getting there. That's the point. You're getting there. And by the way, you will know with each major step of your life a little bit more. And then you keep learning incrementally as the time goes on.
I'm so thankful that in the world of doing this, which is necessary and it's important too. It's like so valid to do this. Go out, talk about what you've done, what you've made with people who are interested in giving you an opportunity. But in the world of doing this, I am going to give you a compliment. I'm so grateful from the bottom of my heart, and so are Taylor and Zach, for you specifically, because, and I know that there's other people that do similar jobs to you that have a similar heart for artists, but I can't believe I just cried in an interview. I'm like, half of me is embarrassed, half of me is elated that I could feel at one of these things. Like, imagine you've been doing it for 16 years and you just don't really feel, but you're talking about depression. Like, you don't know this, but the day we did the first interview at Taylor's house, I had moved into my home, which was empty. It had patio furniture, and that's it. I left everything behind. I woke up in on the mattress that I did have. So I lied. It was patio furniture and a mattress. Got ready. Tried to look cool. Tried to look good.
You're wearing a sailor's hat.
Yes, I was.
You look like Julie from the Love Boat.
You asked us such beautiful questions. You were so empathetic. And it was the only time that I felt safe the entire cycle, talking to anyone that wasn't a bandmate. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is so crucial to artists. We have to be able to come out and talk about what we've made. It's important for fans, especially, and they deserve that, I think. But without the right voices in the conversation, so much gets missed, so much gets sensationalized, and I'm just really grateful.
Thank you. We have to create a better environment for artists.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
us and fans.
Yeah, right.
We have to create a better environment for artists. We have to understand that this is real life. This is coming from a real place. And the reason that artists used to take time off in between projects was to do the work you're doing. Think about the kids who don't have time to do that anymore because it's a constant desire to just turn on.
Always.
Content, music, tour, music, content, more content, music, brand deal, tour, brand deal,
So
content,
much pressure, man.
tour. It's the same treadmill
Yeah.
from day one,
Yeah.
but it's going faster than it's
Right.
ever gone before.
Yes.
To the point where these artists are literally almost falling over themselves, and some are.
Yes, some are. And
Falling off the treadmill and not making it.
Yes, it's really, man, I'm so grateful every day that Paramore started in 2003. Like before MySpace was even like running. Like it was, but not many people were on it, right? At least not bands. We got a head start, I think, on the culture that is the internet now and the fast-paced life that artists and fans are living and just people are living. I would not survive if I were Billie Eilish today. And granted, she's on a rocket that's going so much higher than I would have ever even dreamed for Paramore. If that were me, though, I would
You'd struggle.
be insane. Yes. Yeah. I am so happy there's someone like her who has a great, really cool family around
And
her.
great fans.
Oh, man.
Here's the thing about Billie.
Yes.
Because she gives us, of all ages,
Yeah.
songs to listen to with Phineas that
Yes.
mean something real.
Right.
It goes from exposure to the detriment of the artist to protecting.
Isn't that so insane?
So I feel like she, and I don't know how she feels, I'm not speaking for her, but I feel
Yeah.
like Billie and Phineas are becoming, the more crazy it gets, the more increasingly protected they're getting.
That speaks to something of a mantra for me, which is, I mean, it's where Petals for Armor comes from. It's the idea that being vulnerable is a shield.
Yes.
It
yes.
is a shield.
Yes. And yes. Straight up.
Yeah.
That's how you create space,
Yes.
comfort space
Yeah.
for yourself, is through truth.
Yeah, because how else can you be a human that's inevitably gonna fuck up and trip in front of the world like a million times? And your world could be a stage, or your world could be your job and your apartment.
Totally. The
It
world
doesn't matter.
It's subjective.
It is subjective.
It's not about
completely.
it's not about how many followers you have, it's who you have.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But every one of them is as important as a stadium full of people. It doesn't really matter,
So
right?
true,
it's
man.
It's just your perspective and how you look at things.
Yeah.
And in many respects, that's one of the things many things I love about Petals for Armor is that you are showing sides of yourself that you've never shown before. Literally showing sides of yourself that
Help.
you've never shown
Help
before.
me.
Never shown before. Literally.
Yeah, but what you're saying is truth, and it's I'm terrified, but I also feel more protected than I've ever felt going out because of the fact that I'm just like, what is there to hide, really? I'm sure there are things I don't want to post on my Twitter account right now for 5 million people to see.
Sure.
But what is the problem with making mistakes? Why do we have to? Are we scared of being canceled? Are we just scared of looking stupid?
So when you put out Simmer
Yes.
and we see the video and you realize that people are seeing this version of you now that is true
Yeah.
and increasingly true,
Yeah.
do you get that sense of relief that you hope for? Do you get that sense of lightness? Is there a lightness to you the more you go through this process?
Yes. Yeah. I like the way we're doing this because this is hard. Like talking about your feelings is not easy. It's not easy to understand how to do it, and it's not easy even when you think you know how to do it. Like, you're learning the whole time, right?
For me, listening to this music and recognizing that you've created art out of this experience, which is super important. You know, you could just go on there and you could have taken this whole interview and sort of written it into some words and said them over the top of the music. It's like, well, that's too much.
Yeah.
But you've made art out of it and great imagery and great, you've painted pictures and there's things in there that just make you really think, like lyrically, how, like, talking about a song like Sudden Desire, like your fingerprints on my skin, a painful reminder. Like that is very visceral and very real.
Yeah.
And that language is clearly coming from somewhere that is feels the way it sounds to me when I hear it or read it on paper.
Yes.
Like it's not like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's going to perfectly sum up something.
I'm really proud of the lyrics because that's what I care about more than I care about my melodies, more than I care about any other aspect of the songwriting. I agonize over my lyrical expression, right? I'm so proud of how these thoughts strung together. I'm proud of the way they sing. I'm proud of the way they feel when I sing them. It feels like a big responsibility as well.
To who?
You know, it's one of those things where when you feel something, it's yours. When you offer it, people can run with it. And can you live up to that, to wherever they run to? I don't know if I will be able to or if it matters, but I think about it.
Yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, that's a very common artistic expectation to place upon yourself, right? That's where the trade gets a little crazy, because and you got to get there, Hayley, too, because you've committed to shows. I know you want to go and bring these songs to life, and these are very visual experiences, and the videos that are coming along with the music are deliberate. They're not like, oh, you go come back with a treatment and see what it is. It's like, I know you're in the micro on this, and so bringing it to life on the stage as well, without the bros.
Without the bros.
Okay, so where's your head at with it?
Well, videos, I'm making one with Zach.
Which is great.
I sent him the song and expected him to sort of try and make light of it because there's a lot of colorful imagery and things happening in it. It's a heavy song, of course, but he sent back such a cool visual representation and great references for it, and I'm even more excited now. I'm scared of this particular song, but
it's worth it, right?
It is. Oh, it's so worth it, man. You know what is worth it that I didn't expect is like putting out a video like Simmer, which has some heavy meaning for me, like the part with the red clay, which looks like chocolate pudding. The red clay for me, and this happened, I had a lot of visions and things going on while I was doing therapy. The flowers growing out of me grotesquely was one of them. But also I kept thinking about what is it to me to grow up in a man's world, an industry that I'm surrounded by men all the time, you know, but I'm a woman. How can I, for the first time in my life, own that without shame? How can I like just be proud about my feminine sides, all of my feminine sides? Because I got masculine sides too. Everyone's got both sides of it.
Absolutely.
You know, all of us. But
have you seen me dance?
No, but I really want to now.
It is. Let me tell you.
Yes, girl. I feel like I've been so comfortable with this other side of myself that is so not feminine, that what does it feel like to step into femininity? And for me, the visions that I kept having were earthy.
That's so true, because every time I've seen you perform live with Paramore or whatever, you bounce out and you're raging. It's like you're almost emceeing, and you know what I mean? Like I've watched you stare down Chino Marino, who, by the way, has a very strong feminine side.
Listen, one of my heroes.
Oh, me too.
Truly.
Me too.
So I kept thinking about what it means to be feminine, and for me, it is hands in the dirt, picking up red clay and covering yourself in it. And I don't know exactly why. That was I read this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's ancient and brilliant, and it comes from some of the most primal stories that have been passed down for forever, right? So much inspiration for me. And I just see not even beautiful hands in the dirt, and it's muddy and it's gross. And
yeah, it's ugly. It's beautiful. It's brilliant.
I love it. I mean, God, we have children out of our bodies like it's a sci-fi film.
Yeah.
It's meant to be gross.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
Yeah.
Right?
I looked behind the curtain. Do during the cesarean.
Yes!
Sorry, we're being honest here. I got to clear this one with the missus, but I'm sure she'll be sweet because she's just warts and all, right? During the cesarean birth, I looked behind the curtain. I was like, that's where Ridley Scott got that from.
Yes. It is so in us.
Hello, little alien.
Right. And I love that. That's the part of me that feels the most feminine is when I can tap into how really disgusting it gets in the best way.
Totally.
I love it. And so that's what that scene represents. But one of the most rewarding parts of releasing this stuff and relieving myself of it is to see, I didn't expect it to love this, but all the memes, all the funny like responses and shit that people can help me have a new conversation around it. It doesn't always have to be so heavy.
Yeah.
Like people are helping me carry this stuff right now. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's the gift of being an artist who gets to do things like this. Like that's where it's so worth it. On top of it's just worth it to write something that you love to listen to. That's the other half.
It's so good to listen to. It's such a beautifully brilliant, complete body of work, start to finish.
Thank you.
Hats off to the whole crew that supported you to make it.
Yes.
And all of the people who are helping you design and put visuals and I'm sure stage art and everything around these shows. But I still feel like we have more to talk about.
Oh, we do. There's so much more to talk about.
So we'll table it for a second time and let this EP as it stands, this project I should say, Petals for Armor as it stand right here, immerse yourself in it, love it. It's yours now to apply, right?
Yes. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you.
I'm nervous, I'm excited, I feel all the feelings.